are live all of a sudden because I forgot to do this.
Yes, 巻き割りおしまい。
All right. Welcome back, Dragon Ballers, to Get the Mic. And oh my goodness. Let's just do that. The only show where your host on the left, Owl,
and your host on the right, Brock,
dissect fiction for its mythological significance. We hope you're all doing well. It's like a surprise stream because we never stream in the day, but we were able to swing it for a change. So today we're going to be talking about not Tien Shinhan versus Mercenary Tao. Let me change that. We're going to be talking about Chi-Chi in Anonymous Proposal.
Spoilers.
Oh yeah, forgot. Oh my gosh, I can't spell. I don't even know if that's spelled right. Anyways, we've been gone for a bit. I mean, we're trying to keep up at least one video a month, which we've been able to do. So that's a plus. But I want to be able to stream more here shortly because I want to do some tier lists, getting on this tier list bandwagon, after it's been out of style for years. But there's some things I want to talk about. And we can do a tier list about Dragon Ball once we're done with some of these last episodes, which, by the way, I don't think there's that many more, honestly. Let me check real quick. Yeah, we only have 16 more after this, or 16 more including this one. And then we'll be done with all of Dragon Ball. It's been a wild time, but let's go ahead and get into it. Unless you have anything else to add before we start, Brock?
Nope.
Sounds good. All right, so into Anonymous Proposal. Last time we were in the ends of the first match between Mercenary Tao and Tien, and it picks up right where the last episode left off with Anonymous and Goku squaring off in the ring. And they basically, Anonymous is like, hey, you don't remember this thing that we talked about, and you're Goku, right? you got to know about it, and Goku doesn't know about it because he hasn't been thinking about that. Basically, I think we'll address that once it comes to fruition. And so the match starts, and Anonymous attacks Goku and is pretty decent, but nothing Goku can't handle. Anything we want to say thus far?
The beginning of this, where she's just making these accusations towards Goku and he's just dodging the attacks, it's interesting because uh, there's this element of play to what the tournament is that I think earlier in this arc we were seeing that, for instance, like Piccolo had no patience for the matches. He would just unceremoniously just throw people out of the ring or hurt them. And this is kind of the opposite of that, where Goku is just basically going to keep this match going as long as he can to try to figure out what's going on. He could, blow a stiff breath and just knock her out of the ring. But it does speak to how Goku treats fighting, especially now as adult Goku. That essentially this match, and what the match represents as we get a little bit further in, is more about that interfacing, being able to play properly.
Right, the fighting as an interface is not, I wouldn't say completely new to Goku, but it is something that he is more willing to adopt now. Because even times before, like, Goku will be like, stop talking and fight, like when he's a kid.
Right.
And so I like that analysis. And I think, too, the idea that it has to be here, I think it comes down to attention. Like, Chi-Chi, as it's just revealed, or wasn't. I don't know. I don't know when they reveal her name exactly. But anyways, it seems to be attention also, because this whole time, like even before Chi-Chi comes up to Goku before like the preliminaries and says that, and like tries to get him to remember, tries to get his attention, right? And it doesn't work. And now she has his full attention. And it's something too that I think Goku's giving his attention to, but he understands that it's something that's worthy of giving attention to, instead of what you're saying about Piccolo, who looks at the other spirits around him and says they're not worthy of his attention.
Yeah, and I think that'll be relevant. Rolling over into not the next fight, but the fight after that. I think that's a main theme kind of throughout a lot of the fights as we get further into this is attending. How do you pay attention properly? What do you pay attention to? And how can you control attention as well? Um,
Yeah, and
little ahead of ourselves,
attention as
but
a
in the next
tool,
episode we'll be
attention,
talking
yeah,
about it.
definitely. And so basically, after their first little bout, it's revealed that Goku promised to marry her, and I think she says her name. I can't remember if it's right now or later. And so Goku doesn't know what that means, and of course he promised it as a kid, which in the English dub this doesn't make as much sense because he doesn't do that. In the English dub, she's just like, "Are you gonna think about me?" And he says yes, and that's it. But I think it's fine here mostly in the English dub. It's just that part doesn't really line up. Okay, so she hasn't said her name. That's right.
Yeah, she tells him during the fight that he promised to marry her, and he's like, "Who are you?" And she says, "If you can defeat me, I'll tell you who I am." And then he's like, "Oh, okay."
Yes, and I think that goes into it, right? I mean, he has to prove his worthiness, and I think that there's power in names, obviously, in mythological stories, and so her not wanting to reveal her name is playing into that cosmic tale, and he needs to fulfill his end of the bargain for it to be a reciprocated process, let's say. And so he
Well, funnily
blasts her
enough,
out of the ring.
one person does recognize her, right?
Yeah. We can talk about that. So
Because it's
Oolong
Oolong
is the one that
specifically.
recognizes her. Yeah, He's like, "Oh, I knew all along."
I do think it's interesting, on the tail end of, Bulma's main arc up until the point that we're in Z is over. And so this is just kind of on the tail of that. But Oolong being a part of Bulma, being this masculine voice inside of Bulma, so to speak, sort of an animus type figure, it's funny to me that what Chi Chi sort of represents. Remember, Chi Chi can ride the Nimbus. Like Chi Chi is good, and Oolong is a judge to Bulma that she is not good. He always does that throughout the entire series. He judges her for her, let's say, hypergamous actions.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, of course, that judge sees Chi Chi and goes, "Ah, I recognize this pure-hearted maiden, right?"
Well, I think too. Yeah, I think too. It goes with his wish. His wish.
Of returning that virtue, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that to be able to do that, you have to acknowledge the virtue and recognize the virtue. And so at this point, he can see that. And I mean, there aren't really other characters that are as like pure as Chi Chi in this regard. And so, hold on, just wanted to unpause it from that frame. Um, I really like that Oolong is the one that is able to recognize her, and especially because I mean, they interacted briefly. It's not like they interacted a lot, but the things that Oolong goes through in that arc when he's like interacting with her, right? It shows that they're also like formative within him, and which means that they're formative within the construct of masculinity that Bulma has created, and is like almost watering like a plant, right? Almost nurturing like a pet. I mean, Oolong's always with her. He lives with her. And so I think that that's all the reason why. Like he's the one that knows because of the wish too. He's the one that knows the proper dynamic between men and women. And so he knows that this let's say promised marriage is Chi Chi. Like he can recognize it immediately.
Right. Whereas even Roshi doesn't recognize her. Uh,
I mean, how could
Nobody
he?
recognizes
He
her.
can't. Yeah, how could he? I mean, there's nothing more to like gaze into for Roshi, right? There's no more. There's no. And I think, I mean, he may say some things like she's cute or something, but yeah, I mean, at this point, Roshi is subdued. I want to say, and that's part of Bulma's arc, to be honest. But
Right.
anyways, let's go ahead and continue. So Goku knocks her out of the ring, and everyone's impressed. And so he asks who she is. She's like, I don't know. So Chi Chi is revealed here, as we know, the Ox King's daughter. Where is she so strong, or why she's so strong, I should say. I was going to say where she got her training. But then everyone's shocked, except for Oolong, like we said. And Goku suddenly remembers everything about it. And I like even this flashback here that we see, um, the the design of Chi Chi's clothing in the, let's say, early arc, right, is very different than what we see in her new attire as an adult, right? And I think it shows maturity and modesty, where we have seen that grow throughout the world, some part through Goku's actions, some part through Bulma's actions. And I think that has to do with the, what do I even say? The past, or the I don't want to say the past. Let's say the tendency for women to be raised up to be in marriage, and to be suited for, like how Chi Chi's dressed now. Whereas as an adult, um, it's really Chi Chi that decides to go seek out Goku to fulfill this marriage pact. Yeah, I think
And to
that's
test him, right?
yeah, and to test him. And what I want to say too, to back up like what I was just saying, is like when the Ox King is offering Chi Chi to get married to Goku, and it's like immediately, it's pretty immediate, and they're kids at the time and all that. And I think that has to do with the idea of marriage and um, the idea that Bulma, that Chi Chi will one day grow up to be a wife, and basically what she turns into is something that's a lot more modest than what you might think. I want to address it because people do point out like, oh, look how scandalous and raunchy the original drawings of Chi Chi were by Toriyama, and I think there's a point to it. I don't think it's just there needlessly.
Yeah, and it's kind of to go back just a little bit, what was happening in the scene uh with Roshi and Fire Mountain and all of that. Remember that Bulma made a deal with Roshi, and she was dressed in her bunny outfit that she had gotten in the Midnight Callers episode still. And she made a deal with Roshi that if he helped them with this situation, she would let him Pafu Pafu, and then recanted on it and didn't want to stand up to her end of the bargain, and so relied on Oolong to pretend to be her and do all that stuff, right? But if you tie that kind of back in, it's Bulma's immodesty, right? Bulma's lack of awareness of what it means to be the type of woman to be married, because at that time in the story, she's like, her wish is that she's going to get the boyfriend, right? The world's best boyfriend. And so it's funny because then the resolution of it way down the line, then Oolong recognizes Chi Chi, but Chi Chi's very modest, right? So the next interaction they have is, Bulma is more like, she's more mature for sure, but it's still going to be a while before Bulma acts in the way that's, wifely, you could say, that's like fulfilling her more archetypal role.
Right,
And
right.
so it is interesting that that's the bookends, right? The time that Oolong saw Bulma or saw Chi Chi last was Bulma was at like the lowest of that modesty, let's say.
Yeah, it is, and it is a bit reflective too. And I think that's because Bulma represents um, that societal daughter, societal feminine that it's technological and civilized and all of that. Whereas in the Japanese dub, especially, and we're going to see it in a second, Chi Chi is not so refined as that, but she's still quite wifely, and it's because of the things that she's decided and the things that she's been through. I think that also like has an effect on her from the incident at Fire Mountain, let's say. So
I think that's partially the point of the Fire Mountain, right? We
yeah, I
talked
mean
about it a lot
it's
in the past,
all,
but
yeah, it's all about the relationship, the proper relationship between the masculine and the feminine. And so um I think we even addressed it at the time, like after Bulma forces Oolong to do that, and they're leaving, like Roshi does the Kamehameha wave, and they're leaving and all that. Um, Chi Chi comes and asks Goku, and doesn't like, I don't want to say like coerces him or anything. She doesn't make him uh make him make the promise of marriage, let's say. And so you can already see there's a distinction between how the two of them act. And when we first see Chi Chi here, like she's already covered modestly, unlike how Bulma's dressed in the past, let's say. And so I think it ties everything together pretty neatly. The only thing that we still need to address is the marriage, but we'll get to that in a minute. And by that I mean a few episodes. And so Goku accepts that he made the promise and he proposes to Chi Chi, and they Goku doesn't know what's going on. Why are you hanging on me like that? He says, and I think that's part of I think it's just part of Goku's lack of interaction with let's say a nurturing female spirit. Like he never grew up with a mom, right? And so there's never been like this any of this stuff. And so even from a platonic form, like Bulma's mostly the only woman he's known, and she hits him more than she would like hug him.
Yeah, I think that what when you look at Goku and Chi-Chi, what Chi-Chi is kind of supposed to represent is a reflection of what Goku represents ultimately in the story, which is Goku is an image to orient yourself toward how you should be, the proper way to be. But I think that it works really well in this sense because if Chi Chi is to be a reflection of that, it's the ideal interaction between men and women, or to say the ideal relationship between like a masculine force and a feminine force, but it's natural. It doesn't come with like a societal baggage. It's not like she's fulfilling something very specific for him that he's expecting. This is more like natural, I guess you could say. She's not like Bulma, where she's carrying all of this baggage of society and technology and things like that. She is sort of this isolated person who, because she's not in that society, she's good. She can ride the Nimbus as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it's what is happening here where she comes and she tests him to make sure that he's strong enough to, let's say, defend children that they have together. She says, "You promised me that you would marry me," and it's basically to say that you have a responsibility as a man or as an adult to take this step, like in this process. And so I'm the ideal wife. I'm the ideal archetypal feminine spirit that would fulfill my role in that archetypal image. So you have sort of an obligation to acknowledge that and take that next step.
Yeah, I think that's right. Where she is the I mean, for lack of a better term, she's basically the quintessential mother spirit of the whole story.
Right.
Because I mean, Bulma is representative of the feminine, but she's not matronly. I mean, even later on, she's really not that matronly. But I mean, I guess like if you want to count Super, she's a little like that in Super towards Trunks, but I don't even worry about that. It's really is just it's Chi Chi, and I it's hard to tell what my opinions of Chi Chi would be if I saw the show straight in order when I was young instead of watching Z first, because there's so much stupid filler about Chi Chi in Z that it really I don't know if it like does bad to her character, but it's just pointless. It's just nonsense. And so like them going to Namek and stuff if we want to be specific. But I think here in the way she's presented here from being a kid all the way to here, it's really apparent that she is striving towards that and she's trying to adopt the ultimate motherly spirit. And the first thing she says, even before she says she wants a house made of cow dung, she says, "Let's raise a child," right? And what does she
Hmm.
say here too? Let me see. They walk a bit. Also, their colors are inverted. How cute. So here it is. Let's raise a cute, strong, and ideal child. And I dare say, up until the end of the Cell arc, Gohan is pretty much the ideal child. But we'll get into that when we talk about Gohan.
I think it kind of points to what I was saying before too with Chi Chi's not like let's go get a townhouse in the city. Chi Chi wants the rural, isolated family unit experience, not like to be part of society, but to have a space to create the ideal environment. So I think it's kind of pointing towards that when she's like, "Oh, I wanted a house of dried cow dung." It's kind of like the thing that they'll call Goku like a hick.
Yeah.
Um But it's part of that because she's like a rural person in a sense. She is not part of society. She's part of something that's
But
been lost in society.
even that is aligned to like mother fertility, things like that, because like I mean, basically they live on a farm later.
Right.
So I mean, and that's what she's wanting to be in that cultivation with nature, in that let's say like perfect perfect balance between those. And I think you see it too with Bulma. One of the reasons that Bulma and Yamcha can't be together and get along throughout this whole show is because every time they go to the city, all these girls will like try to get with Yamcha. And guess what won't happen ever to Goku because of this? It's like, yeah, yeah, that's right.
Hmm.
So I think that pretty much wraps us up. Chi Chi introduces herself to uh Krillin and says to Yamcha, which this also shows her like naivete because she thinks like not only did Yamcha actually do that, but like she remembers that happening. Oh my gosh, One Tooth. Here we go, One Tooth. Anyways, so so Bulma gets mad at him for like, telling a child that he was gonna marry her. But Bulma's still not happy about that. She's jealous. And this is another thing. Like look at all this that's going on right now. It's all to contrast how Chi Chi is with Goku and Yamcha is with Bulma, even right there.
Yeah, you see this sort of projection with Bulma forever up until to a certain point in the story where she's her insecurity and her sort of awareness of herself not being ideal, she projects onto Yamcha. So anytime there's something that she could interpret to be, him not being a proper masculine figure, then she's mad at him.
Which
And
happens with being in the city with tons of
right.
different things. And so it's just like it was just never gonna be that way. And then the last thing here she says is something that Bulma has never done, which is make some yummy food in celebration. And of
And now
course,
Goku's like, "Oh, this is a good deal,
yeah,
actually."
yeah, it really is. And I mean, it only happens to Goku for the reasons that we've laid out in Arc 1 because he is open and um adventurous to the new ideas that he's experiencing in the world through Bulma and through other things. When he meets Chi Chi, um that's it's not just anyone could have done it, let's say. It's not I I think it has to do with him riding the Nimbus, him meeting Roshi and surviving like the gaze of Roshi, the tests of Roshi, and all that. And so this is the reward at the end of all of that and staying true too, because let's say Goku makes this promise of marriage, he does all that stuff, right? He can ride the Nimbus and then he doesn't like follow through with that. Let's say he doesn't go to Baba's and he continues down a different path. It's like, yeah, then this wouldn't be it wouldn't be sustained in this point and he wouldn't be able to marry Chi Chi.
Yeah, I mean, as a point of contrast, the very first thing we see with Yamcha is that he's alone in the desert and he's got a cat maid serving him, right? That he's got his extrapolated sort of anima in the same way that, Bulma wants Oolong to serve her. Like, ultimately, he is afraid of women. His flaw at that point in time is that he's afraid of women and he has to have this, extrapolated part of himself serve him. Whereas we see the fulfillment of that now here, where an actual person who is good wants to serve Goku in that way.
Because he is good. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. All right, so that I think does bring us to the end of Chi Chi. She runs off to go cook. And then the next match is starting up, and it's going to be Clearin versus Ma Junior. I can see Ma Junior there. Call him clearing because he always clears. So basically, they come out and they exchange a couple of words. Krillin gets upset about his height as usual. Although he's not as short as he used to be. He used to fight characters, other fighters a lot taller than him. Oh no, here it is. Here it is. So Goku looks at Ma Junior and sees the aura. Is this the first time we really see this besides Popo? Because we saw a little bit of it with Popo, right?
It might be.
I think so. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but I think it's the first time we're starting to see that, and it becomes a staple later, in the story. But for now, we do see Krillin. He's gonna try and attack Ma Junior. Now we haven't really. I mean, we've already laid everything out for this fight. We just need to see what happens. So Krillin fires some blasts at Ma Junior that are just regular ki blasts that follow him up into the air. Oh man, the eye beams. Ma Junior cancels him with some eye beams, and then Krillin comes and punches him. That's what I was missing. The speed up. This was the best. And I think we were talking about attention earlier with Goku and Chi-Chi's fight. And I think already we've seen Krillin take advantage of that attention. If you're not focused on the right thing, then it's easy to be manipulated or attacked, whatever. And so when we see Krillin use these blasts and they do get canceled out, it's kind of the plan. He was trying to divert his attention. He was attacking Piccolo's attention, not him. And that's the idea, is like the way that power is introduced and instantiated in the show is very attention based. Like if someone's not paying attention and gets caught out, like they can get one shot by things that might not have done that, right? And so
Right.
so it's a big deal, and I think Krillin here using it is more into that, more into how this tournament specifically is about attention and reverence, humility, and a bunch of other things that we'll get into as we continue on. Anything else you want to say there?
I mean, as far as the Krillin Piccolo fight goes, I have a lot to say, but I don't know where we're at in the fight.
Oh, I see. It was just what happened after the ki blast attack.
I think you're right. I mean, it's basically he attacks his attention. He responds by firing his attention back at him, and then they sort of a lot of the earlier attacks back and forth between Krillin and Piccolo is sort of setting the ground for what level are you on, right? Because we both know that Ma Junior is on a different level than Krillin is, but we don't at this point in the story know what level that is that Krillin is at.
Right. That's a mystery. We don't really know. I mean, we know Ma Junior is on a different level, but we don't know how high that is. And I don't think we really know until we see what happens with Goku. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely attention based. And then next, Ma Junior knocks Krillin down out of the sky, and Krillin saves himself with the flying technique. So you're right. It is kind of testing that out, right? Testing to see what you know. And so what does Krillin know? He knows how to fly, and I guess we can talk about that at this point. I think yeah,
Well, I would
so
say it's pretty important, actually, because the last thing that we really saw, aside from the tournament, to judge where Krillin was on that more spiritual level, was the situation with the village and the idol. And it was
yeah.
caused by Krillin because he took himself too seriously. He got inebriated and then took himself seriously enough that he put their their idol, so to speak, in the sense of the stone idol, but also the person who was representing the village as a strength. He put that to shame. He didn't give it the right reverence. And I think even in that like 2 episode arc, there's a point where Tien I think told Krillin and Yamcha that they needed to learn to fly so they could deal with situations like this.
Right.
And what this means being revealed here, and it's shocking for all of the characters as well, is that Krillin has learned something really, really important, which is, as you've said, he's learned to take himself lightly. So he is able to fly. He's able to navigate in a higher sense. And so you can't just toss Krillin out of this ring or out of this contention of spirits now, because the not only the lateral, right? Think of the stage as a lateral domain, but the vertical domain, now we see Krillin has established himself as being someone who has the humility and has the maturity after these travels to contend with something like what Jr. is representing in the story, which we'll get more into. But essentially, it's a real test of. I really like this about, as we get through these fights with him, he doesn't act like Piccolo Senior, Piccolo Daimo. He doesn't act like such a villain in that sense. He really does want to participate in this process all the way through to the end. And there is the further we get into the fights, the more we see that he shows a certain level of respect for fighters who have stepped into those higher domains.
Right. I mean, even in this fight that we're going to see in a second, but I think just to add to the flying, it's that one takes themselves lightly, but it also is it's the manipulation of one's spirit, like the ability to use one's spirit to propel oneself forward, right? The strength of the spirit has to be such that it can actually do that, right? Because a lot of it will just be dragging down, right? Like Tao Pai Pai, for example, is not an uplifting spirit per se. Um, and I think for the villains, there's a slightly different analysis, but I think it has to do with the strength of the spirit being able to propel oneself forward into, like you said, the vertical. What did you say? Vertical domain.
Right.
And so it does add that dimension, and that dimension is accessible to those who can use their spirit to cause motion, basic in the most basic form, let's say.
Well, they
But it
can use their spirit to propel themselves rather than needing to use their body to propel themselves and their deeds, right?
right, and what exactly that means is that the pattern of being that the person or character is exhibiting is one that will allow them to ascend in the cosmic order. Um, and so it's a representation. I mean, obviously people can't fly, but Jaden the Super Saiyan is right about some things. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess this is kind of to say that, like, Piccolo thinks that he can just throw Krillin out of the ring, and the rebuttal to that is Krillin is like, "I'm not just some guy. I'm Krillin." you know,
right, yeah.
I've inspired people.
I'm in
I
this.
am a mode of being
Yes,
that you have to
yes.
contend with.
You're right, right. Yeah. So, Piccolo, I mean, Junior decides to contend with him, and he beefs up, and basically they're going in for round two, and that's basically where the episode ends. Oops. Oh well. start it over. Wow. Okay. That's pretty much it.
I love
So
it.
do we have
He's
some?
beefing Krillin. Goku goes, he's telling the truth, Krillin.
Yeah. He's bluffing. He's bluff. Nah. So do we want to add anything here? I know it's the middle of the Clear and Piccolo fight.
No, I think that's a good place to leave off. The sort of resolution of what we're talking about with what level is Krillin on? What does it mean? We just jump straight back into it in the next episode. I kind of wish that these fights were more self-contained because this happens every now and then with these tournament arcs where all of a sudden the fights will start getting split in half.
Yeah, and then it'll happen like a few episodes in a row. Anyways, I mean, it is what it is. But as far as anything about Chi-Chi Anonymous Proposal, our idealized waifu, hick wife,
You know, one thing I was thinking about for this
hillbilly wife.
episode when I watched it back, I like to try to tie the episode up as a singular piece. And the only thing that I thought, and I don't really have a fully fleshed out thought about this, but what I was thinking about was Krillin's response at the beginning of the episode with finding out that Goku, you know, he's promised to this cutie and Goku's always so lucky. Why couldn't it be me? Um, a lot of the reactions that we get to the reveal of who Chi-Chi is Krillin being upset that it's not fair and that it's not him and saying, you know, it's, you know, why does Goku get this? And then
It also
immediately
helps that
following
he
that,
didn't know her as a child. But yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
But then, you know, basically Krillin lamenting like, "Oh, it's not fair. Goku gets this, Goku gets that." And then the very next fight that Krillin gets into is now he has to contend with Ma Junior Sama, as he calls himself. And I think that it might be thematically connected in a roundabout way, but I haven't been able to put it together in a way I could articulate.
I see what you mean. Say that last part again.
I think that it's possible that as we get to the end of this analysis of the fight between Krillin and Ma Junior, and we talk about what the fight means to Krillin and kind of what it represents, like the fights normally do in these tournaments, um, might outline a little bit more about Krillin's character and about
His interactions or reactions to Chi-Chi's reveal. Sure.
or moreover the reactions to his lot, so to speak. Right? Why does Goku get this and I don't get this?
Yeah. Yes. That's what you were getting at that I was
Yeah.
trying to cling on to, but I forgot what you said. So yeah. It definitely has to do with that. And I think that the thing where he's saying that, and so the universe basically says, okay, well, if you want to try and get these rewards that Goku has earned, you have to go through the same hardships that Goku has endured.
Sure. Which is, you know, this is what Goku went through before.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think part of it is kind of that because I wouldn't say that if it weren't for the fact that this has happened a lot of times in the previous tournaments where it seems to be chronological in that sense, right? Characters are having their thematic struggles or character issues brought up and then immediately symbolized in their fights in the world tournaments, you know.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it could be, I mean, especially following, you know, the last time there was an encounter for Krillin with the Mozoku, as they call themselves, he was just killed instantaneously, just on contact, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is him now standing up to that same spirit again, and being able to defend himself and contending with it. And so,
But
yeah,
one thing I'll
it's
mention is they don't know. Only Goku knows right now that he is one of those. I think that would
right.
psychologically have really affected Krillin if he knew.
Yeah. I mean, Krillin obviously doesn't know because he never met Piccolo.
Yeah.
But also, there's some sort of funny stuff going on with people's inability to recognize Ma Junior as looking just like Piccolo.
But that's
But
actually really, yeah, I know, right? But it is really important for stories to lay out what characters know and what characters don't know, and that can actually drive a lot of the story. instead of it.
Well, that's especially important for Dragon Ball, right? The whole
Yeah.
arc, the whole first arc is about what Bulma knows and doesn't know
Yeah,
when she goes
definitely.
unconscious.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that it's it's important for Krillin not to know as he's contending with Ma Junior, and Goku is wise enough not to tell him, and for him to be able to test himself properly against it.
Right. He's starting to do, and that's his, microcosm of blowing up the moon.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess I had a little bit more to say about it, but that'll bleed over into our discussion in the next
we'll
episode.
talk about it in the next episode. Okay. Well, I think that is gonna wrap her up. Thank you everyone for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We are gonna try and stream again soon. So keep on the lookout. Like I said, we're gonna try and keep up at least this monthly upload schedule, if not more than that, coming in the future. But I think that's gonna wrap us up. So I've been your host on the left, Owl.
I've been your host on the right, Brock.
And we hope you all have a good rest of your day.
Yoo-hoo! I'm back!
I've been given.
Maybe he's asleep. Master Roshi. So, you'll train me now?
Well, let's begin that lesson, shall we? I want you to ask that girl